Welcome to the Sourcing Hero podcast, produced by Una, a group purchasing organization that empowers sourcing heroes, and Art of Procurement, the world's largest procurement podcast network. I'm your host, Kelly Barnard. The goal of the Sourcing Hero podcast is to capture the epic stories of people who are rising up and beating the odds to create exceptional value within procurement, directly from those heroes themselves. Today, my guest here on the Sourcing Hero podcast is Kris Lance. Kris is Vice President and General Manager at Una, a group purchasing organization and the home of the Sourcing Hero. Kris joins me every month to tackle a current news story or topic of interest from his own point of view. So, hi, Kris. Happy April. Thanks for joining me here on the Sourcing Hero podcast.
Happy April. How you doing, Kelly?
I am doing great, and I'm actually really looking forward to this conversation. So, behind the scenes for everybody, every single month, Kris and I are like, this will be a fun one. Like every single month. But this month is no exception. We're going to take on something really interesting that people may or may not have heard about. And this is a new trend that's coming to us from the world of sportswear. So, well-known activewear company Under Armour recently unveiled a line of regenerative, this is their word, regenerative sportswear at Milan Fashion Week. It's their first collaboration with Unless Collective, a company they recently acquired. This company is a producer of zero plastic, plant-based fashion. So, Kris, without any other comment or information, what's your first impression?
What do you mean plant-based? That's my first reaction. I don't know. It's like, I mean, when I think of plant-based, I think of cottons and linens, and I'm like, what? Most of it already is plant-based. Like, what do you mean plant-based? And then I guess maybe I'm just automatically jumping to like, you mean like bamboo? Like, I don't know. I mean, when I see this being the focus from a company like this large, I think the obvious topic we're not talking about this month is like the current state of the economy and tariffs. So for me, I'm thinking, man, I'm really not too sure about paying a premium for something that's made out of special plants. Like I don't know. That's my knee-jerk reaction right off the cuff.
See, you did a better job than I did, and I have no excuse for this. But for some reason, when I saw this headline and I read plant-based and this being a big deal, my head didn't go to cotton. In fact, I was surprised when I read the article and found that was the plan. I don't know why I thought this was going to mean like seaweed
Leaves
or carrots. Like it's going to be made of like leftover Thanksgiving vegetables. We're going to turn them into sweatshirts. I don't know why I thought that, but I just instantly went to thinking like, well, they turn, what is it? Plastic into fleece. Okay, if we're making a big deal about this being regenerative, obviously it's got to have like rutabagas in it or something wild like that. So once I read and figured, oh, you're right, cotton, that's a plant. Okay, this actually doesn't have to be as wild as I thought.
Right.
I will admit, and I don't know if you're with me, I don't know how many of our listeners are with me. When I was growing up, there was this very trendy brand called Hypercolor. And the plan with these shirts is that the pigments in them would respond not just to overall temperature, but to body heat. So all of the advertisements were focused on like people dancing at a party. And as it got warm, right, everybody's shirts kind of changed color. Now, what happened in practice was that the area under everyone's arms was a different color all the time. Or if you were someone who happened to perspire down the back, maybe it's a hot day, you're sitting against like a leather or vinyl seat. Yep, the whole back of your shirt would be a different color. Kris, do you remember Hypercolor? Are you and I aligned enough on timeline that you remember this trend?
We definitely are. And I was thinking the exact same thing. It's like, I struggle as it is keeping my shirts normal colors without the Hypercolor. Like, if anything, why didn't they use the technology to prevent shirts from like showing, sweat marks or hot, like, or heat? Like, that's innovation I could get down with. But it actually reminded me too of who did it. It wasn't too long ago, but Nike, I think they had for a half a year or something, but they took like all like recycled shoes and made new shoes. And I'm like, in concept, that sounds great, but you're still charging me a premium,
Yeah.
your margin just went up 80%. I didn't get a better shoe. Like, so yeah, I definitely remember the hypercolor t-shirts. And yeah, it was cool in concept. It's like the awkward stage in the middle though, when the shirt's not
Yeah.
changed.
Exactly. And I think your sneaker repurposing story is a perfect one because it taps into something else I was extremely concerned about
Mm,
when I thought that these clothes were going to be made of carrots and things. So I'm thinking, well, what does that mean they're going to smell like? So am I going to open the dryer and it's going to smell like leftovers in there? I think I would have the same concern with the sneakers. So are you taking out the stinky bits before you repurpose them? I'm always concerned with any of this creative stuff. Like I know there's some seaweed based sort of packaging fillers, and I don't know. I'm from an area with an ocean. Like I really don't want to open a box and have it smell like low tide.
no good. No good.
But you were in fact right. So this initiative is really to combat some of the textiles that end up in landfills. So by focusing on cotton, they're getting away from the fact that apparently 60% of textiles, clothes that we wear today, are made of polyester, nylon, and acrylic, and only 15% end up being recycled, meaning the vast majority of this ends up in landfills. I certainly know like the whole athleisure trend. You're not seeing a lot of people in starched shirts or even jeans, frankly. None of the kids want to wear jeans anymore. So it is more of these synthetic materials. And I do think it's a fair thing to consider as consumers is sort of the end of life.
Mm.
Kris, as a consumer, do you tend to take into consideration reuse or end of life waste when you're making purchases?
Not, oh man, admittedly, not often. There's two things that I really look into. The first one, I would say jewelry, which just to be clear for the listeners, like the Lance household does not purchase much of that at all. So, but jewelry, and then hazardous materials like propane tanks or things like that. And so jewelry, the reason I looked into that is actually the movie. I don't know if you've seen it with Leonardo DiCaprio, but Blood Diamonds.
Okay.
That movie kind of opened my eyes to that
Uh,
industry. And so anytime I'm looking at like whether it's gold, silver, diamonds, anything like that, I definitely have my sources I'll check out. Hazardous materials, really, I look at that though just because it's a hassle, right? So I want to
yeah.
balance my home inventory levels. I don't want to end up with like, what's this guy cooking meth in his house? Why does he have 80 propane tanks in his basement? So, but no, ultimately, I don't really think I'm saying this tongue in cheek, but I don't really think about what fish or bird is going to be impacted, based off the shirt that I buy. And, maybe that's wrong of me. I think it is a new muscle to kind of think that way. But I will say, I do look at the type of packaging, that things
Oh,
come in.
totally agree.
Absolutely. Like if I can use cardboard or certain things for compost or for fire pits or just different things like that. So,
Yeah. No, and I do think we're all learning to think more that way. I think about the packaging. If I look at it and think to myself, I don't know how I'm going to get this open without a
mm,
Vigits to Urgent Care, I might not buy it. I definitely think about sort of the lifetime of the things. So like two huge questions. Can it go in the dryer? Can it go in the dishwasher?
mm,
If the answer to either of those is no, the item is automatically on the fence. But then, I mean, there are a lot of options. So I try to be very good, right? If you can donate clothing instead of throwing it out, we definitely stay away from the sort of like really inexpensive, bulk, practically disposable clothing kind of thing. I'd always rather pay a little bit more and know that I can just wear this garment into the ground, right? Instead of constantly cycling things through.
mhm,
But it does all connect really to the brand image and reputation that a company is looking to project to connect with their consumers. Now, in alignment with this whole launch of the regenerative clothing, Kevin Plank, who is the CEO of Under Armour, made the following statement, and I think this is interesting. He said, quote, "Without story, you're just selling shirts and shoes. The world needs hope, and that's what we think Under Armour can be," which it sounds great. It's interesting when you start to connect that back to like, stuff people wear to the grocery store or the gym. And so, Kris, let's flip this and make it a little bit of a brand conversation.
right.
Obviously, from a revenue standpoint, customer loyalty is worth a lot of money. Being able to project the right kind of lifestyle brand is hugely important.
Mhm.
how do you think that the Under Armour team might be taking a lovely statement made by Mr. Plank, the CEO, and actually trying to translate it into their marketing and operating plans?
Well, I'm not throwing any shade, but I think they kind of got caught projecting a little bit, or they didn't do well enough in the marketing aspects of this. Just my opinion, right? Because if
Well, I
I
did think it was carrots.
yeah, that's fair. That's fair. But if I take the quote on its face, it almost feels like they're projecting onto their customer base. Because I
Mm,
100% agree. Like marketing is absolutely storytelling, but if we call it what it is, no, sir. Like most people are buying shirts and shoes because they want or need shirts and shoes. Now,
yeah.
they might buy yours over someone else's for different reasons because they like your sustainability or they like that who's leading this company versus who's leading that company. But in my mind, I don't see, especially right now in this climate, I don't see thousands of people who are going to just rush out to buy a new gym shirt made of a
Mm,
different plant from the one that's working just fine from them, made from a different type of plant. So, so for me, it's again, it just comes off a little bit like detached because
mm,
that can be more of like your internal messaging, but I don't think that's something you tell a customer, hey, here's why. I mean, I don't know. I think that from my view, I think they just slightly missed the mark because it felt like they were projecting. It's, hey, we're just selling shirts and shoes. It's like that's what people need. That's what people want right now.
yeah.
So
Well, and I did find it interesting too that they unveiled this new line at Milan Fashion Week. Now,
yeah.
I am no huge fashionista, whatever. I mean, I own too many shoes, but that doesn't qualify me. But I'm thinking, okay, like, is this really what are they trying to say on the world stage by trying to align the brand through regenerative materials and fabrics? In Milan, it is interesting, like, they're trying to go for something bigger. I
Right.
do know the athletic wear space is really competitive, and Under Armour has had some issues in the last few years, so maybe this is an attempt at a course correct.
Yeah.
But there is a specific piece of the marketing that I wanna get your thoughts on.
Mm,
This line has been specifically described as, wait for it, limited edition.
mm.
So I'm curious if you think this is about urgency to buy or if this is what we might call a CYA, just in case the idea of sweatshirts made of rutabagas doesn't take the world by storm.
I think you're absolutely right. I think it's a CYA. So you're asking if this or that.
Yeah.
I think it's a CYA. If for me, if you were 100% all in on this movement, I'll call it, right? Then I would expect you to convert all of your closing lines, then
Mm,
adjust those price points for consumers and allow the market to move you forward with that endeavor. What I see with limited edition is, man, we think this would be really cool, but we're not going to do it at a loss.
yeah.
And then also the fact that it was only for like a handful of days. And I get it, it was just for that fashion week, but I noticed that too. Like Under Armour was down last year and not by just a little when you're
Yeah.
talking how big the company is. So it's almost like, is this a quick little push to really get things off going Q1, Q2, be maybe ahead of some of these purchases before spring and summer? And I don't know. Limited edition always makes me pause though when I read that.
I mean,
So
in a way, it worked. We're talking
yeah,
about it.
yeah,
So it certainly became newsy.
that's true. I would be curious on how those sales numbers are. Like if, like,
Mm.
how did the market receive it? I'd be curious. I haven't looked into.
I tried to find pictures from Milan. I
Yeah.
say with regret, I don't know anyone who went.
Oh, okay.
That's not really my crowd. So I couldn't get any firsthand reports, but I also wasn't able to find any information about how the launch went. Now, before we finish this on, I actually want to call myself out on two things because as I reflected on this, I'm like, okay, what's the larger message we can draw from this story? I want to call myself out in two ways. First of all, I need to get better at my plants. Cotton never crossed my mind when I read this story. And I'm kind of glad because I probably wouldn't have picked it. I think when I assumed it was dinner vegetables, like, oh, I got to talk to Kris about this. But the other thing is, so I instantly thought this was absolutely hysterical. And I'm going to admit, based on when I found the story, I double checked to make sure it was not an April Fool's prank that this story had come out. But when I realized it wasn't a prank and how funny I thought it was, I actually started to think, I'm a big history buff, right?
Mhm.
What if I had been reading an article about this crazy new thing that some guy named Edison created? And you can take this glass with a metal bit and some weird wires, and you can screw it into this little device, and it's going to light your house. I wonder if I would have had the same response to the light bulb. Would I have had the same response to frozen foods and microwaves, right? So the skeptic in me, I feel like we're all sort of subject to this 30-second clip, unserious world where we sort of pass judgment and move on.
Yeah.
So I'm totally calling myself out for that. But if we're going to try to learn a lesson from it, how can we keep our sense of humor, but also allow space for experimentation, right? In some cases, you have to suspend belief long enough to allow new ideas to become clarified, to be tested, to have an opportunity on the market, and a chance to prove themselves rather than just being rejected out of hat. So, Kris, what would your advice or thoughts be around suspending disbelief, giving things a chance so that the next amazing innovation, maybe it's Nike's made of carrots, I don't know, but whatever the next thing is, actually has an opportunity to prove itself and be successful rather than each of us sort of laughing and just scrolling on?
Yeah, innovation and creativity, they're both important. I think if you're the one who's setting out on an endeavor, then I think what you need to do when you're balancing this, hey, we think this is good. I think you need to always remember that phrase. I love this phrase, but just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Yeah.
I think if you're setting out on an endeavor and you keep that in the back of your mind, I think that'll help you cut through the noise or get you out of your own echo chamber or your own rigid, maybe thought process, right? It's kind of like a way to proofread your own rough draft. Like, should we really be doing this? I know we can, but should we really be doing this? I think that's good because it forces you to realize or acknowledge that not all new ideas are great ideas. I mean, ask the team. I have tons of ideas. Now ask them how many of them are great, you know? So it is.
Well, there was that meth lab idea. That was not so great.
Yeah, right. But it's certainly a balancing act. But on the flip side, right? What was it? Was it Henry Ford, right? Where he's like, if I asked the people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses.
That's right.
So it's even the soft daggers I'm kind of throwing at them. Like I do applaud if it's real, if it's intentional, then I do applaud, like, be bold, try something new. But I think just also be honest with yourself on what you're setting out to do. And then I would say, as a skeptic, which I can do this quite easily, it's when something comes out, I mean, if it's worth your time, test it then. Challenge it, stress test it. Even if you think it's funny, don't disengage from it and just be like, trash it. How do you know? Take a look, explore it. That's how the worst thing that will happen is that you'll learn. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And that is never a bad thing.
Never.
Well, Kris, I think in fact this was a fun one.
Yes.
I'm really glad that I found this story. I'm glad it was true. And I'm glad we talked about it.
Mhm.
If people are meeting you for the first time, maybe even hearing the Sourcing Hero podcast for the first time because they're aficionados of plant-based clothing, where can they connect with you, learn about you, or learn about Una?
Well, if this is your first podcast and you are interested in things outside of plant-based clothing, we do a talk on some other more intense or more fun topics. So check those out. If you want to get in touch with me, you can send me an email. It's Kris, Kris @una.com. If you want to learn about Una, what we do, why we're doing it, our mission, and get to see some of the incredible people that I have the privilege of working with, go to Una, so UNA.com. I'm also on LinkedIn when I can get there, and it's just Kris with a K, Kris Lance. So.
Well, thank you, Kris. And I know one thing for sure, we will definitely have you back again next month.
See you next month.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Sourcing Hero podcast. Join us again next time for more true stories of sourcing and business heroism performed by your colleagues and peers. Look for the Sourcing Hero wherever you get your podcasts, and don't forget to subscribe. Finally, don't forget, Sourcing heroism is taking place all around us every day. Keep your eyes open and you're bound to see it. Until next time, I'm your host, Kelly Barner. Stay well and always remember that you can be a hero too.